It's 7:01 on a Thursday morning, and you're standing at the kitchen counter, waiting for a coffee maker older than your marriage to finish dripping. Outside, a garbage truck grinds down the block, the only sound on the whole street. Your phone buzzes once against the counter, then goes still. Beside the same mug you've used since a job that no longer exists sits a folded bank statement you haven't opened in 3 weeks. You know what's inside it without opening it. 10 digits if you count the decimal. Hold that mug in your mind. Hold that number, because this is a story about what happens to the people who raised you, the people who share your blood, the exact moment they find out you're worth $100 million, and what that number does to 30 years of them believing you had nothing. You are 24, $41,000. That's what sits in an account nobody in your family knows exists. Built from a warehouse paycheck split in half every 2 weeks, rent and groceries from one side, an index fund from the other, the transfer set to automatic so you never have to decide twice. You drive a Corolla with 190,000 miles on it and a check engine light you've learned to ignore. On Sunday dinner, your mother asks if you're doing okay, in the tone people use for someone they've already decided is struggling. She slides an extra piece of chicken onto your plate without asking. You tell her you're fine. You are. Across the table, your brother Derek is passing around his phone, showing off a leased BMW he picked up that week. Nobody asks how he's paying for it. Nobody has to. It looks like the answer already. Nobody at that table would have guessed you're the one who ends up fine. That's exactly how you planned it, even if you couldn't have said so out loud yet. Money built quietly looks like nothing at all. That is the entire point. You are 27. $310,000. The fun has compounded through 2 dips you didn't panic sell in, plus a small stake in a friend's logistics startup you said yes to on a hunch, back when it was 3 guys and a rented forklift. You skip the family trip to Cabo that year, tell them work's been slow, and spend the week instead reading a term sheet at your kitchen table, a cold cup of coffee going untouched beside you. Your father calls it staying cautious. He means it as something between a compliment and a diagnosis. Derek goes to Cabo. Derek posts from Cabo every day, all week. Infinity pools, a rented catamaran, a caption about manifesting abundance. 2 weeks later, he texts asking to borrow $2,000, just until Friday. You send it without a word, without asking what it's for. Friday comes, Friday goes. Nobody mentions it again, least of all Derek. Some debts were never about the money. They're a test of who still shows up. You are 29. The phone rings at 11:40 on a Wednesday night. Your mother's voice thin and fast. Your father needs surgery. $14,000 is the number the hospital gave her, said flat like it doesn't understand what it's asking of a woman 2 years from retirement. She's already running the math out loud on emptying her savings. The number's not quite adding up no matter how she says them. A hospital hallway. Fluorescent light, her voice cracking on the word surgery. You sitting up in bed in the dark, phone pressed hard to your ear, already reaching for your laptop with your free hand. You tell her not to touch it. You wire the money before sunrise, still in the dark, still in yesterday's clothes, through an account with your middle name on it, nothing that traces back to the person she thinks she raised. By the time she calls the hospital at 9, the balance already reads 0, and the woman on the phone tells her the account's been settled, no explanation offered because none was asked for. The hospital's billing office becomes the miracle in the story she tells afterward, retold at every family dinner for the next year. She never learns it had a name. Derek doesn't call that week. He's dealing with some stuff of his own, which is what he says instead of admitting he has nothing left to give, not even a phone call. The people who love you loudest aren't always the ones who show up quietest. You are 31, $2.1 million. Remember that mug on the counter? You bought it that year for $1.50 at a thrift store 2 blocks from the first rental property you closed on under an LLC nobody in your family has ever heard the name of. You still drive the Corolla. You still bring the same $7 bottle of wine to Thanksgiving. Still park 2 streets away out of habit more than necessity. Your aunt pulls you aside during dinner, squeezes your arm, and tells you, gently, like she's handling something breakable, that it's okay if things haven't worked out the way you planned. Her eyes flick, just briefly, to the Corolla parked out front. You thank her for her concern, and mean it, because she doesn't know enough to be lying to you. Derek arrives an hour late wearing a watch that costs more than your rent used to and spends dinner explaining, unprompted, exactly how he financed it. Everyone leans in to look at it, passes it hand to hand around the table like a museum piece. Nobody leans in to ask you anything at all. Being underestimated is not an insult. It's cover. You are 34. $9.6 million. At your cousin's wedding, standing near the open bar with a warm club soda, you overhear your name in a conversation you weren't meant to be part of. Something about how you're the responsible one who never really took off. You let it sit. You dance with your mother. You go home before the last song, the way you always do. 3 weeks later, a distant relative doing a background check for something unrelated stumbles across your name attached to a holding company filing, a real estate portfolio worth more than the wedding venue itself. She mentions it once at a family group chat, half a question, a screenshot with no caption. Someone else answers for you before you can. Probably just a coincidence. Same name's common. The thread moves on to photos from the reception. Nobody follows up. You almost say something that night, in the car, on the drive home. You don't. It would have taken 30 seconds and changed nothing anyone was ready to hear. The truth doesn't need you to hide it. Most people won't believe it even when it's shown to them. You are 37. $34 million. Your sister calls, voice tight, asking if you could help with a down payment. Just a loan, she says. She'll pay it back within the year. You do help, quietly, and only part way, structured as a gift small enough that nobody asks where quiet money like that comes from, wired the same week with a note that just says, for the house. She thanks you like you scraped it together from somewhere painful. Derek, meanwhile, has put $60,000, most of it borrowed, some of it from your sister, into a friend's sure thing. It isn't. The friend stops answering calls by spring. Derek tells the family it's the economy, his voice carrying the particular confidence of someone who has never once been asked to show his math. Nobody in the family corrects him because nobody in the family has any idea what the economy has actually done for you. Your sister never asks how you had it ready so fast. It doesn't occur to her to wonder. That's the strange mercy of being underestimated. Nobody double-checks a story they already believe. Helping someone and revealing yourself to them are two different kindnesses. You can offer one without the other. You are 40. $71 million. Your father's health takes a turn that isn't fatal, but is loud enough that the family starts having the conversations families have when they think they're running out of time. Wills, arrangements, who gets what, who's stable enough to be trusted with anything. Your name comes up in that conversation the way it always does, politely, and last, right after a long pause nobody bothers to explain. One evening at your parents' kitchen table, your cousin, half joking, searches your name online looking for a LinkedIn to reconnect. She finds a decade-old resume from the warehouse job and nothing else. No company, no title, no photo updated since a haircut you no longer have. She laughs and says you must be off the grid. You laugh too and change the subject before she can wonder out loud why that felt like a relief instead of an accident. You drive home that night thinking about how close she came without knowing it, and how little it would have taken for the search to go one page deeper. The best hiding place was never a secret. It was simply being someone nobody thought to look for. You are 42. $100 million. Read that twice. A deal you'd structured 2 years earlier, a distribution company, sold quietly to a much larger one, closes, and this time it closes with your name in the filing, where anyone can find it. Not buried, not shielded, right there in a press release someone's coworker happens to send to someone's cousin, who sends it to the family group chat with 3 question marks and nothing else. The phone starts ringing before you finish reading it yourself. Your mother first, then your father, then your sister, then 20 minutes later, Derek. He doesn't ask if it's true. He asks what percentage he'd need for a stake in whatever's next. No congratulations, no are you okay, no how long have you been sitting on this. Straight to the number like the number was the only part of you worth calling about. Silence, on your end, a long one. You look at the mug on the counter. You don't answer him that night. $100 million doesn't change who your family is. It just turns the volume up on who they always were. You are 43. The calls don't stop. Your mother mentioned, almost too casually, that your cousin's daughter needs help with tuition. Your aunt resurfaces after 4 years of near silence to ask how you're really doing, a question she hasn't asked since before the wedding. A second cousin you haven't spoken to since a funeral sends a friend request, and an hour later, a message that opens with, "So I have this idea." Derek sends 3 different business plans in a single week, each one more urgent than the last, each one addressed to a version of you that only exists now that the number is public. You notice who reaches out to see you and who reaches out to see it. You start declining calls you used to answer on the first ring, not out of anger, out of clarity. The kind that only shows up once you've watched 30 years of quiet get reinterpreted overnight by people who never once asked how you were doing when the answer might have cost them nothing. You keep making your own coffee. You keep the same mug. You still pick up when your mother calls. You still don't pick up for Derek, not because you've decided anything final, just because you haven't decided you're ready to. Love that shows up after the number does was never really about you. It's 6:42 on a different Tuesday morning, months later, and you are standing at the same counter in the same socks waiting on the same coffee maker that still hasn't been replaced, though you could replace the whole kitchen 1,000 times over without noticing the dent in your accounts. The mug is still there. Same crack down the handle because some things you keep on purpose. Except this time, there's no folded bank statement hiding what's inside it. There's nothing left to hide. Everyone already knows the number. What they don't know, what they've never once thought to ask, is who you were before it. The version of you that paid a hospital bill in silence at midnight, that sent $2,000 knowing it wouldn't come back, that built all of this in a mug-sized kitchen nobody thought was worth visiting. That version of you is still standing here, in the same socks on the same cold linoleum. They know what you're worth now. They still don't know who you are. So when your family finally sees the number, when they call, when they reach out, when they suddenly remember you exist, do you tell them the truth about all the years they didn't? Do you hand them the whole story, the hospital bill, the $2,000, the mug, the years of being underestimated on purpose? Or do you let them keep believing the version of you that never needed anything from them at all, the one that was easier to love from a distance and easier still to forget?